Alright, what's up, people? So, today here I have devised this chart in order to be a guiding tool to writing chord progressions um, without using music theory, but also kind of using music theory. It's really just like for you to get in touch with your guitar and stop like thinking so much when you want to make a chord progression. So, it's a really simple concept. Choose the number of chords you want to have in your progression. So, one chord would not really be a progression. That would be more of a drone. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But, anyways, so just try to write a chord progression that has only two chords in it. And then, continue on. You can write one that has only three chords in it, which is kind of like, it's a little bit of a challenge. So, will you have one of your chords last for 2 beats and then the other ones last for 1 beat each? I don't know. It's up to you. And then we have our standard 4 chord progression, and then 5 and so on. It's a simple concept. And then I'd say if you really want to challenge yourself, go up to 8 chords in a progression. Any more than that, it's not like it's not doable or anything, but it just means that you're gonna have more difficulty. The listener will have more difficulty construing your chord progression as a song and a progression. Because if it just keeps going aimlessly in new directions, there's no repeats, then it doesn't really feel like a cohesive piece of work. All right. The next thing that you want to combine together is the how many notes are going to be in each chord. So we have 2 notes, which is not a chord. It's technically a dyad, but what 2 notes does for each chord, if you only play 2 notes in your chord progression, let's say you have let's say you have a 4 chord progression and each of the chords only has 2 notes in it. So your mind will fill in the blanks of what those 2 notes, the dyad, is representing. It'll sound like an implied chord, basically. I would recommend listening to Boards of Canada if you want to get familiar with 2 note chords, dyads, and how they're using the progression. I'll put some. Alright, so this is my progression with 2 notes. 2 notes per 2 notes per chord. Links in the description for examples of all of these. And then same concept here. Try 3 notes per chord. So use your regular old triads, and then combine it with any of the numbers of chords in your progression. All right. Here is a 3-note chord progression. Each of these chords has 3 notes. Oh no, I cheated. That one has 4 notes in it. You get the point. And then, we have the 4 note. This is where all the jazz chords come in, like such as, the major 7, minor 7, dominant 7, minor 7, flat 5, and the diminished 7th. Your 4 note chords, this is probably about where things cap off as a guitar player. I included 5 and 6 notes here because, there are some 5 note chords you can play on guitar. This is for you keyboard players. If you want a very lush sounds, you can try your 5 and 6. But guitar, you're probably going to be limited to having 4 notes per chord as your maximum. 5, really, there are obviously a ton of 5-note chords, like major 13s, dominant 13s, like that. You can play all those notes with. Anyways, then the next thing you want to pay attention to is the string group you're playing in. So we're not going to be using your standard open campfire chords here. What I want you to do is to find somewhere on the neck, anywhere on the neck, probably in the mid-range to higher up, and make your chord progression exist only on these 4 strings, the high E string through the D. So E, B, G, and D. And then let's see what else we got here. Oh, this is a song I wrote. It's called End of Daze. It's on streaming, by the way. I'll put a little link into whatever corner it's going to be in. And I'll put a little tab too, because this is pretty difficult. But I wrote this chord progression. It has 8 chords in it, and each chord has 4 notes in it. And I make use of extensions and alterations everywhere in this. And I did not use any music theory at all to write this chord progression. I just kept moving my hands around until I found notes that I liked the sound of. So here goes. Okay. And then for the second one, it's the middle strings, or the sandwiched ones. So try making a chord progression where it's only where you only use the A string through the B string. So you got A, D, G, and B. Oh yeah, here's another 4. This progression is 4 chords long, and it is it's only on the middle strings, so the 2 through 5. And there's 4 notes in each chord. And you can play it up here too. And you can play it down here again. You can use only 3 notes if you want. You don't need to even use the B string. Check it out. You got a whole different vibe. Maybe I'll turn up the reverb for this and just let it ring out, And then similar concept here. These are 2 common types of voicings for chords, where you have your low bass note on the E string, and then you have the D, G, and B. And then this is basically that same exact concept, except you go a string down. So it's A, and then it's listed here. And then the final thing is just to keep in mind the chord families. I think the most valuable thing you can get from this is just be able to recognize, not is this A major 7 or B major 7? It doesn't matter if you can do perfect pitch or whatever, but be able to recognize, what does a major 7 sound like? What is the defining quality of a major 7? Can you hear a major 7 chord and just think immediately, alright, I know that's major 7, minor 7. And do the same thing with all of these chords until you really know what each of their distinct characters sounds like. I realize that you're probably like, well, what about augmented chords? Well, what about them? with them, I'd say it's better to think of them as a dominant chord with, an altered dominant chord, so like a 7 sharp 5 chord, that is just missing the flatted 7th. Because functionally, augmented chords really act like dominant chords. And my cat is very interested in this laser. Let's see. Anything else to say here? Yeah, so what I like to do a lot of the time is reverse engineer music theory. And what I mean by that is you write your chord progression first without knowing, don't even think about the names of the notes. Just remember what the shapes are. Just write your chord progression without thinking about music theory, without worrying about it. Try any of these combinations and suggestions. And then what you can do afterwards is slowly, painstaking process, but figure out what all of the notes are in your chords, and then you manually write it down on a piece of paper and try to figure out, well, if it's an inversion, what should I do? And then, try to figure out what chords you wrote, and then try to figure out the music theory behind it. That is a fun way to do music theory, in my opinion, but, some people think that's mental torture. Yeah, and then I have a few more things to say. Another approaches to writing songs without thinking too much about theory. Just write only power chords. I love punk rock, and honestly, it's just incredibly easy to write a song with power chords because there are no wrong sounding power chords. They're perfect fifths. They're dyads, like the 2-note chords I mentioned right up here. Yeah, write a song with power chords. It's really easy. A similar vein of philosophy, I would say, is to just turn all of your chords major if you want to have kind of a surf rock kind of sound. Other things to mention, chromatic mediants. That's when you know what? I would just suggest looking up a video about them because there's tons already. Maybe I'll link one in the description. But chromatic mediants are used a lot in Nirvana songs and generally just grunge in general. It's when you go to, say you're playing E major, and then you go to either G major next, or you go to G sharp major next. Even though that's not part of the major scale, those chords are not diatonic to the major key of E. They still sound great. Yeah, that's just a little brief touch-up on chromatic mediants. And then the other thing is to switch your chords, I'm going to call them genders arbitrarily. So if you were playing a dominant 7, see what a minor 7 sounds like in that position, or see what a major 7 sounds like. Yeah. So that's kind of the gist of that part. And then the final thing I want to say is master the intervals. I want you to be able to tell exactly what interval you're hearing and playing. Because intervals are the foundations of chords. Also, they're just fun to mess with. I highly recommend if you have an electric guitar, crank up your reverb really high. If you got a pad reverb or something like that, crank it up. Just start playing some random dyads on the high fret area, from frets 9 to 15. And I guarantee you'll come up with something cool. So yeah, if you do come up with a cool chord progression using this strategy, which I highly recommend, you write this chart, copy it down, and put it in a notebook somewhere. Post a link to it. I'd love to hear it. So yeah, that's all I got for today. I'm going to post some stuff on the description, and yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, etc., all that YouTube nonsense. So yeah, I will see you next time. Thank you.